r/Nosleep. Posted by u/Mr_Mojo_Rising95. If you hear the ringing, then it's already too late. Part 1. My town has a bit of mystery to it. Flatsville, located right off of Route 303, has a history to it of a sinister nature. We are a small-knit community, approximately 800 residences. Flatsville serves as Moore's stop-off on Route 303, where truckers come in for cheap liquor and dusty old motels. There isn't a whole lot of business to find here, especially as an up-and-coming novelist. I am taking the time now to send out some information, hoping someone out there can explain what the hell is going on in Flatsville. I first heard about the ringing in the 5th grade. Susie Watkins and I were in the same grade. She had strawberry blonde hair and rows of freckles on her nose. Susie was fairly well liked, she had great grades and had the social skills to match. When Susie passed, it was a shock to the whole town. At first, they thought it was an aneurysm, you just collapse one day, dead as disco. Without any explanation or warning, just gone. Same thing that happened with Susie, which made the aneurysm case so solid. Truly was tragic. They named the school park after Susie. What made this case stranger was when Susie's mother, Teresa, started telling people about the ringing in her ear. Susie came home one day, complaining to her mother about a ringing in her ear. Thinking nothing of it, Susie's parents cleaned her ears out and sent her off to play. Maybe they weren't trying to scare her, they had to have known about it. Susie complained each day after that, the ringing's intensity growing. Susie was missing school, complaining that she couldn't sleep because of the ringing. She couldn't concentrate, she'd feel nauseous and get violent at times. All these symptoms, starting from constant ringing. 2 weeks after she told her parents, Susie was found face first in her bowl of bloody Cheerios at the kitchen table. Now, this may seem like a one-off kind of story, but people dying after hearing ringing is no joke around here. What's gotten everyone on edge after Susie died was how young she was. You never heard about a kid hearing the ringing. Normally it was adults, more often the elderly, complaining of a persistent, high-pitched ringing, often intensifying as days go on. You start feeling dizzy, nauseous, blood may trickle out your ear. Then, you just collapse. People will give you all kind of excuses as to what causes the ringing. The most popular cause is an old nuclear power plant that was decommissioned sometime in the early 90s. People say that the radiation from the plant causes the ringing, and the effects of the poorly planned decommissioning is still causing the ringing to this day. Personally, I only know 2 people who have died from the ringing, Susie Watkins, and my old guitar teacher. I used to go to Mitch's house for guitar lessons every Wednesday afternoon. I'd ride my bike a few blocks to Mitch's trailer. He was about 26 at the time and I thought he was the coolest guy out there. Well, one lesson, Mitch stops playing mid-song. I was playing rhythm and he was leading when he suddenly stopped. He twitched his head to the side and jammed his pinky into his ear. "Everything okay?" I asked Mitch. "Yay, all good. Just extra earwax I think," he replied. Mitch continued playing but we ended the lesson shortly, saying he couldn't focus today. I didn't think too much of it till I saw Mitch at the music store 6 days later. He looked like he hadn't slept a minute. His face was pale and his eyes had dark circles underneath them. He looked wobbly, on edge like someone was trying to sneak up on him. I tapped Mitch on the back and he nearly jumped out of his skin. "Holy shit," he spoke in a weak, strained voice, "you scared the crap out of me." "Sorry Mitch, didn't mean to scare you. Find any good CDs today?" I asked him. Mitch mumbled something incoherently. "Sorry, what? Say that again," I replied. Mitch just stared at me blankly. "Mitch?" I called out. Mitch continued staring at me, hunching over as his mouth gaped open. "Mitch? Is everything okay?" I asked again, taking a step back. A trickle of blood dripped from his face, crashing onto the floor. I watched Mitch, still as a statue, start bleeding from both his eyes. Mitch didn't seem to notice as the blood raced down his face like tears. "Mitch, Jesus!" I cried. The store manager Andy came running over after hearing me scream. Mitch fell to the floor, blood continuing to race out from his eyes and started to seep from his ears. Mitch felt cold, his face looked like a skeleton. Pale and unshaven. Mitch trembled in my arms as Andy called an ambulance. They loaded Mitch into the ambulance but he didn't make it to the hospital. He died on the way there. The examiners called it another aneurysm. The only town in America where you're more likely to have an aneurysm than anywhere else. I know what happened to Mitch, hell I think everyone does. It's just no one likes to talk about it. It's all a big secret. Everyone is just praying it doesn't happen to them. I watch as the years go by and more people each year seem to die. What seemed like only a few people a year turned now into at least a dozen. Almost like it's getting stronger. It's been a few days now. The ringing started on my way home from the gas station. I thought it was just an effect from listening to my music too loud, but it hasn't stopped. Sleeping has been impossible these last 2 nights. I just lie awake, staring at the ceiling. The ringing seems like it's getting louder. My head has been throbbing. It feels as if a drill is being forced deep inside my skull. There isn't enough Advil to take that would help it. I'm starting to get scared. There was blood on my pillow and sheets last night. Please, if anyone is out there that knows what the hell this is or how to treat it, please contact me. I don't know how much time I have left. On day 4, I just started driving. My skull was on fire like someone was jamming a hot fire poker into my ears. The damn ringing won't stop. I can barely hear my own thoughts, let alone other people. Sleep has been non-existent, maybe 15 minutes here and there. I feel lightheaded all the time, must be all the blood I am losing each night, staining my sheets and clothes. I drove my Jeep down Route 303, far away from Flatsville. Here's to wishful thinking, that whatever this is, stops when I leave this godforsaken town. The road out of Flatsville is a lonely one. Empty fields as far as out to the horizon. The sun was high that day. I had a full tank of gas, hoping to drive wherever the hell the road takes me. I guzzled down Red Bulls, feeling the surge of caffeine keep me awake in my drive. As Flatsville disappeared behind me, I could have sworn the ringing was stopping, or was my mind playing tricks on me? After about 6 hours of driving, my bladder nearly ready to explode. A sign for a town came into view. Hartsdale food/gas/motel. Just what I needed, all 3. I pulled into the main street of the town, which was eerily similar to the layout of Flatsville. I followed the signs towards a local motel. The ringing in my ear was starting to pick up again. I jammed a fresh pair of earplugs in hoping they'd help. They didn't. The motel was just as I expected. Basically run down and pretty much empty. There was one other car in the parking lot. An old Ford pickup truck with its bumper missing. The motel's vacancy sign was blinking. That had to be a good sign. I headed to the front door, smelling the stench of old cigarettes even though I hadn't seen anyone smoking. The smell inside the motel was worse than out front. An older woman sat behind the counter, smoking a long cigarette. She looked me up and down before darting her attention back to her magazine. I requested a room, paid in cash, and headed towards my new home. I didn't bring many bags with me. I wasn't sure how much longer I'd even be around for. The room was small, decrepit. The bed creaked horribly, smelling strongly of mothballs. It was dark, dingy, but it had to make do. The ringing in my ear hadn't been as intense since I left. I think leaving Flatsville may have done the trick. While it was still there, and giving me a killer headache. The worst had seemed to come and go. I thought to myself I could be the first survivor of whatever the hell this ringing is. The only survivor that I know of. I laid on the bed, rested my head on the firm pillow which felt like heaven. For days, my head felt like it would explode if I rested it on anything. I could feel the pressure starting to slip away. And with that pressure lessening, sleep started to come. I woke up the next morning, a slight ringing in my ear but much less than the past few days. And to my surprise, not a drop of blood on my clothes or the sheets. I looked at my phone, wondering if anyone even cared that I left. They probably didn't. With no shock to anyone, no messages. I felt rejuvenated, like I had hibernated and was just waking up for the new season. It was bright outside. Rays of sunlight were peeking through the curtains. It was 3 p.m., I had slept for almost 15 hours. My body needed the rest. I clicked on the television, praying this crappy motel got any service. The ball game popped on, looked like the Yankees were up 5-2. I watched the game for a minute or so when an emergency alert came on the screen. A woman was standing on a road, surrounded by open fields, looked just like Route 303 I thought. We're here outside of Flatsville, New York, where reports are coming in of mass deaths. Ambulances and police cars raced by the woman, nearly blowing off her hat. Calls are flooding into local and federal authorities of mass panic and paranoia. The streets are littered with bodies. Individuals appear to be dropping dead in their tracks. Cause of their deaths appear to be unknown at this time. More coverage at 5 p.m. I watched in horror as the woman was jamming her fingers into her ears, almost as if she was hearing something. I frantically called my parents, hoping to hell they'd pick up. I rang but the phone went right to voicemail. Both my parents, a couple of my friends, nothing. I sent out texts but no one answered. I paced around the room the rest of the day, watching the ongoing report. praying that someone would get back to me. The ringing was still dull in my head, only when it was really quiet could I hear it reverberating inside my skull. The reports kept coming in. Mass deaths in Flatsville, New York. Unknown cause of deaths. Was it a chemical attack, or was it mass suicide? Reporters flocked towards Route 303, hesitant to go any further in. I watched as reporters left the screen after playing with their ears. I could see it in their faces. Something was wrong with them, they were hearing the ringing. I headed down the hall to the vending machine, hoping there'd be something edible to eat. I passed the lobby where the same older woman was smoking yet again, reading another magazine. She was fumbling around in her ear. Her finger was jammed deep inside. She'd pull it out, inspect the tip and jam it backside. I watched her till she flipped me the bird with the same crusty finger. Oh God, was it here, I thought to myself. The ringing was still a constant inside me, no worse but not getting any better. I could feel the headaches starting back up again. That same body ache was following, tightness in my neck and shoulders. I had to get out of here. I grabbed my bags and headed towards the lobby. The woman was digging her fingers inside her ears again. I must have looked like a crazy person, sweat was racing down my face. I looked at her, barely able to stand at that point. Are you up? Do you, hear anything? I asked. The woman looked at me, removing her chubby finger from her ear. I don't hear much, just you talking right now, wasting my time. I leaned in, smelling the stench of her cheap perfume. No, do you hear a ringing? The woman's eyes lowered, her shoulders pulled back. It's been bugging me all day, started this morning. I stepped back, feeling that dry lump bubble in my throat. It'll pass, probably just the radio on too loud. The woman went back to reading her magazine, her finger back to picking around inside her ear again. I backpedaled out the door, nearly smashing into a delivery man. Hey, watch it, pal, the delivery man shouted, his finger wrestling around inside his ear. I could feel the ringing inside my head pulsating, growing louder. I stumbled into my car, kicked it in gear and raced out of the lot. I headed down past the main road, pushing the speed limit. I pulled up to a stoplight, feeling my heart in my chest. The motel drawing further behind me. A woman in a bright pink top started crossing the road, her finger pushed far into her ear. The ringing in my own ear was starting to amplify more, my vision was going blurry. The woman stopped halfway through the crosswalk, just staring at the road ahead. The light turned green, the woman was still standing there, just digging around in her ear. An oncoming car was pulling up, a dark black SUV. I watched the car accelerate, aiming right for the woman. Get out of the road, I screamed towards the woman. Unaware if I even said it loud enough with how deafening the ringing was. The woman turned towards me, fingers circling around both her ears, smiling. The SUV accelerated further, smashing into the woman. It crashed into her with a thick thud, sending her flying. Blood splattered on my windshield. The SUV kept diving before smashing into a telephone pole. The woman laid motionless behind me. I saw her in my rearview mirror, a bloody, tangled mess. I felt sick, the ringing wasn't stopping. I hit the gas and peeled down the road, hoping to find another town that wasn't infected just yet. The news reports were still coming in. Now from Hartsdale as well, random sudden deaths. I can't let it get to me, I have to keep driving.